My name's Jeffrey Breslaw. I'm a retired pharmacist, and my wife and I care for our eldest son, Nick, who's been diagnosed with schizophrenia. He's now 46 years old, so we've looked after him now for 25 years. I'll tell you a little now about the history of Nick. Went through school, got A-levels, good at athletics, and went to Reading University to do law. While he was there, he got on quite well. He enjoyed himself with the usual things for university, and he was there for 3 years. He phoned me up and said, "Dad, I don't want to do the exams." So I just thought it was exam nerves. I went down to see him in Reading, and we had a good chat about things, and I hoped I'd persuaded him to take his exams. Just before the exams took place, he just came home. We didn't know what to do, we didn't know what was wrong. His behaviour hadn't been that different from previously. He was quite quiet, and unfortunately as well, he developed arthritis while he was at university. He stayed a lot in bed. We have 2 other sons, and it was like living in hell. Arguments, not knowing what to do with Nick. We thought something might be wrong with him mentally. We made some appointments with psychiatrists, which he didn't turn up to. We took him to the local doctor, and of course once he was inside the doctor's surgery, it seemed everything was normal. Ultimately, he broke down, and my wife took him to Royal Free, and they said we must take him to Friern Hospital, which was open then. We waited 2 or 3 days, and then they asked me to come up and see them. I went up to Friern, and it was like an old Victorian hospital, and the wards were locked, so it was quite an introduction for me. I went to his ward, they opened a ward for me door, and I couldn't believe what I saw, the different people who were quite seriously mentally ill, comatose, smoking a lot, shouting, and I went to see the psychiatrist doctor in charge. He asked me to sit down. He said, "Mr. Breslaw, your son's been diagnosed with schizophrenia." No description, no prognosis, no definition of what schizophrenia might be. And I went out and sat in my car, and I knew my life had changed forever. Of course, Sheila's and my life had changed forever. Nick was in this ward for about 6 weeks, medication by injection, and he seemed to get a lot better. And Nick then went to Bowes Park, a Richmond Fellowship home, and Sheila and I thought, well, he's getting better now. But of course, we were putting our heads in the sand. Nick then came to a council home in Bounds Green in North London, and he had a flat there, and he couldn't look after himself. He couldn't cook for himself, and we didn't know what to do. He'd come home sometimes in the week. He could drive still then. He'd have a meal with us, and then I told him, "You've got to go back now." The psychiatrist we talked to, Sheila and I, we were told to make him more independent. So we sent him back home, and really all he wanted to do was to go back to his own bedroom and sleep there and be with us. Ultimately, he got so ill and lost so much weight, we managed to get through another GP, him a place in Knapsbury Hospital. He was fairly happy, but then Knapsbury closed down, and he was sent to a home in Harrow, which again he was looked after pretty well. When he was in Knapsbury, as I said, he developed spondylitis, ankylosing spondylitis really badly, and he'd lost a stack of weight, and his toes, knees, shoulders make him quite disabled. And it's very sad. And also he developed iritis, so he lost the sight of one of his eyes because he was psychotic at the time. And when he was in this home in Harrow, unfortunately he got hit by a car. It wasn't bad, but they wouldn't let him go out on his own anymore. So for 5 years He was restricted just to the place because they were responsible for him and they didn't want him to get injured again. He was well looked after. Again, he started losing weight. He was depressed. He wanted to get out. And once again, Sheila and I were at our wits' end. What do we do? What do we do? And thank goodness another psychiatrist came along to look after him. And he went to another home in Harrow, and he was trained to walk across roads and be careful, and he's become a changed person. But of course, with the moods of schizophrenia, it's up and down all the time. Sometimes he's quite amenable, and other times he's moody. In some ways, we're lucky because his intelligence has been retained. I'm speaking specifically about what it's like for a parent to have a son diagnosed with schizophrenia. I must emphasise that some of the intense feelings that I have experienced, and Sheila, are also felt by parents of children who have died or who have other kinds of serious illnesses resulting in profoundly impaired functioning. But for us carers of a mentally ill person, there's a void, an emptiness. It's like a bereavement without an end. A fear of growing old and dying, not knowing what will happen to Nick. We know he'll be looked after, but he won't be there to watch over him. Families often feel ignored by many professionals. There's poor communication, particularly when they invoke confidentiality. I think confidentiality issues should be explained, and also the legal obligations of the professionals. Carers need access to key information to help them understand and cope better with the illness. We need education and training how to cope. And now I'm sure I know what I want. I want Sheila to say a few words as well, because she's shared the pain just as much as I have, perhaps as a mother in a more extreme way. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Sheila Breslau. I'm Geoffrey's wife. I'm the mother of Nick. Geoffrey has given you, I think, a very good outline, history. This is 25 years ago. I know personally, and I think also by looking at you, life for the mentally ill has changed an awful lot, or I do hope it's changed an awful lot. I hope today no one would go through the experience as we had. I know I've only got a very little while to talk to you, and there's really always so much to say. But as doctors, I really would like to impress upon you very, very much that the care that you give for your patient, I'm sure, is the best that you can possibly do in the time that you're given or with your expertise. But I do, excuse me, my little pledge is, it is absolutely essential, and I stress this word, essential, that you do somehow find your time and your energies and your expertise to give to the carer. It doesn't matter who he or she is, what age she is, what her place in life is. Nick is 46. He's never ever going to be that wonderful 19-year-old that I once knew. He's a pretty marvellous man, but he's now a man and he's already going towards middle age, which I find very scary. I took him out on Sunday and he wasn't in a very good way. He was in one of his moods. And because I'm getting a little bit older, I found it difficult and I found it very hard. And then when I came home, I was so tragically sad because I was cross with him. I hope we will go forward an awful lot with the carers. And basically, as I said, it is all up to you. I think the patient will always get some form of help because they are getting very good help. But I think as you, as medical teams, must see your way forward to giving the carers all the help that Geoffrey has stressed, because it is a frightening, frightening, very scary world. And even after 25 years, I promise you, the pain doesn't ease up for 1 minute. Thank you very much.